Hi everyone, it's Nicole Spohr here today for Simon Says Stamp with an interactive quintuple slider card. So this quintuple slider is an awesome way to create multiple interactive pieces just with one slide. So really unique and innovative, and I decided to pair it with a stamp set that is from a little earlier this year called Lifting Hearts. I thought the critters floating up with balloons would work perfectly with this die. We're going to die cut the piece that creates the tracks for the slider first from a 4 by 5¼ inch panel of smooth white cardstock. I'm using a little low-tack purple tape to hold this down in place and die cut that from the panel. Plus, I'm going to die cut the slider mechanism from another piece of smooth white cardstock. Now you'll see there's little long rectangle pieces that pop out, and then there are all of these little notch pieces. So these little notches are actually going to line up with the tracks, and they're going to slide around each track piece, so those double lines that are die cut, and then they're going to wrap around the front, and you're going to want to secure them. Pretty much the easiest way I have found to do this is to either use a little adhesive and do them one by one, or that is the easiest way I found to do it. But if you want to decorate your panel first, I would suggest going ahead and doing that before you attach your slider. So in this case, I am going to create an all-over cloud background with a little Lawn Fawn Minty Fresh ink, a blending brush, and the My Favorite Things Mini Clouds stencil. And all over the front of my panel, I'm going to create these little minty clouds. So when we're finished with this card, it's going to look like the Lifting Hearts critters are lifting up with their balloons, floating in this cloudy sky, which is just so stinking cute. These are really adorable anyway. At the end of this video, I will link to another video I did when this release came out where I used the same stamp set, but for a completely different card. This one, interactive cards are all the rage, and truly, this is one of the easiest sliders I've ever put together. So very, very fun and a great way to create, like I said, all those multiple interactive sliding pieces. Now I did go ahead and ink up those clouds all over the panel, even though the bottom part of this is going to get covered. Kind of when I was inking this, I wasn't exactly sure how much of this was going to be seen, so I went ahead and just kind of inked it all up. You also would not have to wouldn't have to have a hidden area at all if you don't put an extra layer. They can simply move. I'm kind of doing the hidden and the sliding part of this, but if you want them just to be floating in the sky and moving up and down in the sky, you wouldn't have to, so you could go ahead and stencil the whole panel. Now that I have that, I'm just going to clean up my work surface with a microfiber cloth, and I'm going to open up each of these little areas with the flaps, and then we're going to slide them in one by one into the tracks on the background panel. As I mentioned, I find it easiest to start at one end and do them one at a time. They can be a little finicky, especially if you're using not quite as heavy a weight of cardstock. This is 80-pound Neenah cardstock that I used. I think that I was out of the heavier weight. I would, especially for the slider, would like to use 110-pound weight, as I think that it would just be a little sturdier, but you'll see that this works just fine as well. As I am placing these through the tracks, I am putting a little double-sided adhesive over each of these to hold them down in place so that they don't slide out when I place each next one in. So I'm just going to slowly work, and you can see I'm just kind of threading those through to the front side of my scene, folding them together, and then using a little double-sided adhesive to hold them down. I like to put my sliding pieces on foam adhesive. So each of these little areas, nowhere else, because if you put any adhesive over the tracks, your sliders will not work. But I'm going to put little teeny tiny square adhesive foams to each of these when I go to place my critters on there. And that is what is going to hold them up and away from the slider and still allow the slider to move. Have a couple other little tricks for making that slider move a little bit easier as well, and I'll show you those as we get to it. So you can see it might stick just a tiny little bit. Just going to line that back up, and there is my whole panel with the sliders. I find it easiest to kind of lay it all out before I get to that point. So here's those foam adhesive squares I was talking about. These are the scrapbook adhesives, foam adhesive squares in these small size, and they actually fit perfectly on those little notches. So I'm going to place one using some craft tweezers on each notch. I would highly recommend, if you used double-sided adhesive tape like I did to hold those flaps closed, you remove the other side, the backing paper from that. Otherwise, your foam adhesive square may not stay put. It might pop off. So I'm just going ahead and assembling all of these pieces ready to create, because I laid out my stamps. I kind of knew where they were all going to go, how I was going to place them so that they cover the foam adhesive squares and then that they will slide up and move. I also have planned out my sentiment. So I have all the components ready to go. The other thing I will note, and I think makes the slider work easier, is placing it on your card with foam adhesive. So I went ahead and went all the way around except at the top, kind of framed up the back of that, and I placed this panel on my white top fold card base with foam adhesive, and you can see how much easier it slides. Then I die cut a cloudy border using the Hero Arts Cloudy Sky Scene die, one of the dies from this collection, and we're just going to ink up the edge with a little of that Lawn Fawn Minty Fresh ink so that it really complements and coordinates the rest of our cloudy sky. This is going to create the hidden panel that some of the critters and other images that we're using from Lifting Hearts will hide behind, and then they'll be visible as you pull that pull tab slider up. Before I attach our border to the bottom of our card base, I am going to take sentiments from Lifting Hearts and line them up. I am going to be leaving a little space. This is a pretty big border. I wanted it to come up pretty far. I wanted it to hide a lot of the elements so that when you pull the pull tab, you get to see the full scene. So because there's going to be a lot of space, I want to add some embellishment to that as well. We're going to start with our sentiment because I want to make sure that is clear and visible, and then we'll work around that when adding in some cute little imagery. I'm using the phrase, "You lift me up," and then the additional phrase, "Whenever I need a smile." Just a fantastic encouragement type of card. Great for any time. I have found myself sending these kind of cards more and more lately. Because I think we all can use a little bit of a smile. Now that I have my border and I have my images, I'm going to just kind of play around with my stamps a little bit. So probably the question I get asked most is how I figure out where I want to put everything. This is how. I often will lay out my stamps or dies, whatever it might be, before I actually stamp, color, die cut, whatever it is. And that gives me a really good idea. I had a kind of an idea before I did my background, but this is giving me a better idea. I really could not fit the turtle and the heart balloon up above. I tried multiple times, but the bunny and the balloons and the mice and balloons just don't all fit across the card. And I felt like it was going to be too congested. So I'm going to move the turtle down, which actually ends up being probably one of my favorite parts of this card, even though we're focusing on the slider. is that we've got the stuff going on that's hidden and is revealed with the slider, but we also have some great stuff going on just when the recipient takes the card out of the envelope and you see this adorable scene, and it looks really cute with critters with balloons tucked behind these clouds, and then you just add in that interactive element, and I think it really makes this a super special design. I am coloring my images from the Lifting Hearts stamp set with Copic markers today. I stamped these images on some Neenah smooth white cardstock using the Hero Arts Intensified Black ink. This is a fantastic ink for Copic coloring. And then I'm just going to color them all in. Across the screen, you will see the letter and numbers for the Copic markers I am using. I have also listed these on my blog with the corresponding, bunny, and then I've listed out the numbers of markers I used, and then the balloons and all of that. So if you are wondering at any time what exact markers I use to color these in, you can find that information on the screen here, or if you want to be able to see it a little bit longer since I've sped the video up, you can find that information on my blog, and I've linked that underneath the video here on YouTube. I'm using some colors, rainbow color, but it's not, I want all the colors of the rainbow represented, I guess, but kind of more of a pastel kind of rainbow. I am going to pull in some red and some royal blue because I really do enjoy those colors, but I also have that kind of peachy pink and aqua and a really pretty lilac-y bluish purple all in my card, plus the nice mint of the cute little turtle. I always love a pop of red. Probably 90 to 95% of the cards I make have a pop of red somewhere. And this one really lends itself great to that because there's some little hearts we're going to be using, and then the heart for the heart balloon, I decided to make it red. You will notice that there are a lot more images on the finished card than there are in the video. And that's because as I built this, as I started working on it, I wasn't exactly sure how much room I was going to have. And so I knew I'd probably want to add some of the individual hearts a little bit later, but I wasn't sure how many. So I decided to just go ahead and concentrate on the interactive part, which is going to be our bunny, our mice, and then 2 individual balloons. And then the turtle and balloon that's going to go there on the front of the border. And then I could fill in later with some more individual balloons and then those hearts. Another thing to note, this card is economical in the fact that I'm using a single stamp set to create this entire card. That goes for the sentiments and imagery. There is nothing additional used here. And this isn't a brand new stamp set. This is something from my stash. I think any set with balloons would be really, really cute. There's lots of great stamp sets out there. This just happens to be one that I immediately thought of, and I love these critters. I think they're very, very sweet and cute, and so I used this one today. But I noticed as I was going through my stash that I have quite a few others that would work as well. So I almost have everything colored. My blue balloon did bleed. I oversaturated the paper. I could not fix it. I actually stamped it again and recolored it. I always like to be transparent with you guys when I can't fix something. I know I often really try to encourage you to fix things if at all possible, but that just was not fixable. I thought it was going to ruin the look of my card, so I did end up restamping and recoloring that blue heart balloon. It happens sometimes, and I know better, and I still did it. In fact, the peach balloon with the bunny, it bled as well. It bled. I colored it first. It bled out into where the blue and the orange area are, but I was able to I let it completely dry before I came back and colored in the other 2 balloons, and I was able to disguise the fact that it bled just with the shading for the aqua and yellow balloons. I am adding some white highlights now with a white pen just to give this card a little something else fun, and then I die cut all the images with the coordinating Lifting Hearts dies. Now the bunny is actually going to cover 2 of those foam adhesive squares, and that's on purpose. This is a big image. I felt like it really needed to. In fact, if I could have made it work for the mice, I would have done that as well. But they just really, there wasn't a good way to cover 2 of those squares. So I'm kind of playing around with this, and I wanted to show you with the turtle. There's no good way to fit that in, I didn't feel, up above. Without, there's a ton of overlap. I feel like it's crowded. So by moving him down next to the sentiment, so much cuter. I'm going to take a black glaze pen and add detail to the eyes on any of the critters. And then I'm going to remove the backing paper from those foam adhesive squares. And very, very carefully, we're just going to start here, and I want to make sure it's as straight as possible. We are going to pop these in place. So there, we're just pressing the bunny with the balloons in place. And I want to show you, I'll just push that down. When I place the border here, and I am going to pop this up with foam adhesive, the bunny is going to slide up and out of that cloud bank. We'll take our black glaze pen and add detail to the mice eyes, I guess. And then I'm going to find the best spot here. I want it to also come up out of the clouds. So a lot of it is visible, but it's going to reveal that they're floating on this gift package that is held up with a balloon, and they're all hanging out on it. I'm going to put just a couple rows of foam adhesive along the bottom of my clouds. I will go in and add some along the sides here in a minute when I make sure nothing is going to hit those and interfere with the movement. But popping that up is going to allow your images to slide up and down behind them much easier. Then we're going to glue our cute little turtle and his heart in place right there to the left of the sentiment. And then our individual balloons in green and blue are going to go on those remaining 2 foam adhesive squares. So kind of in between or it's going to be a balloon, the bunny and balloon, and then the mice. And we just want to make sure that they're kind of offset so that they aren't right next to each other. Looks a little more organic that way. So, so cute. And just the more you move the slider, I think the easier it will work. If you ever have trouble getting those tracks to slide, another little hint is to take a powder tool and kind of run it over the slider, the tracks, and that little touch of powder is going to help make that slider move even easier. Now it's time to grab a few more images to fill in everywhere else. And for me, that's going to be about 4 more balloons and 6 little hearts. There's 3 hearts in different sizes, so we want to use those scattered throughout. I always like a little heart like down by the sentiment, especially centered under the sentiment or kind of over to the end is always cute. We're going to center this one of the hearts underneath, but we're just going to fill in with hearts. And I worked on them a few at a time, or a couple at a time, I guess I should say, just trying to see where all I wanted to fit those in. You can see I'm also adding foam adhesive along the sides of my cloud border here. Now that I can see where everything is sliding and I can make sure nothing is going to interfere with that. Isn't that so much fun? So, so cute. I've got my little hearts. I already added my blue heart balloon to that remaining foam adhesive square on the sliding track. And I'm going to use an embellishment wand to just easily pick these up and pop them in place on little dots of liquid adhesive. We're going to have a little trio here, and then we're going to put some up above as well. Don't forget up above. That's going to give you that depth and dimension. I'm even going to add an additional balloon kind of floating off the top of the panel so that it really ties it all together nicely. Then we want to make sure that the recipient knows that this is an interactive card. The Honeybee Stamps one-of-a-kind stamp set has all kinds of great interactive words like handle, press me, open, close, push, pull, spin, lift, all kinds of things. You can build a lot of different interactive words with this. I'm going to use pull and just stamp that with black ink on the little tab. Here are my remaining balloons. I'm gluing them in place. I'm going to take some scissors and trim away that excess as soon as the glue is dry. I added some additional little hearts here and there. Just taking my tonic scissors. I thought I might be able to use the rest of that blue balloon, but I felt like I needed a little bit more of a substantial balloon up top. Don't forget to add white highlights to any of these images we've just added, since we did that to everything else, so it all coordinates and complements each other really well. And you can kind of see that little hole up at the top of the card where we're actually going to end up adding that remaining balloon. I felt like it just kind of needed a little something else. So we'll just grab our little heart balloon, stamp that up, color it with the aqua marker colors. And then we can go ahead and adhere that in place. And I did super, super fast coloring. Running that through my Spellbinders Platinum die cutting machine, and then we're going to just glue it up here at the top. And it really kind of balances the whole thing so beautifully. It creates that visual triangle from top, left side down to bottom corner with those individual balloons. Once the glue has dried, we can go ahead and take our scissors and trim off that excess so that it goes right along the top edge of our cloud background. And here is our quintuple slider all finished. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for this interactive slider card featuring Simon Says Stamp, Stamps and Dies. The supplies I used to create my card are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here are a couple more videos featuring Simon Says Stamps and Dies that you might be interested in. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell to never miss a new card making video. Thank you so much for joining me today, and we'll catch you next time.